Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Entergalactic. This is a Kid Cudi animated TV special. It is the length of a movie, and I would pretty much consider what I watched a movie, but I will actually explain the deal with that later. But it is about a young, I guess sort of young, semi-young, in his 20s, I think, graffiti artist, illustrator named Jabari, who has a famous character named Mr. Rager, who's everywhere in New York City where this is set, and he is trying to bring him to comic book form for Cosmic Comics. And at the same time, he's falling in love with his neighbor, who he had sort of a meet cute with, I guess, Meadow, who is a photographer, and they're both sort of in the arts, and you see their kind of love story as they sort of navigate kind of their professional success as well as their romance and kind of falling in love, real love, I would say, or at least a major relationship with each other. This is kind of meant to go with a Kid Cudi album of the same name. I have listened to that album. I like it. I'm not the biggest Kid Cudi fan or know enough about his music that I feel I should really be reviewing that. I'm reviewing this animated special. I did like it. Apparently it's supposed to be like his first album, which is the only other one I've heard. So to me, it just sounded like he was doing his thing. But it sounded pretty good. Seems like people tend to like it. This was developed, not directed, I want to specify that, by Mr. Cudi, or Scott Muscudi. Am I right about that? Yes, I got it right. He, for some reason, does not want to be called Kid Cudi or something. I don't know the deal with that, but then when he does music, he's Kid Cudi, but then when he does movies, he's Scott Muscudi, which is confusing to me. Whenever my review of X comes out, you'll hear me also mention, I think it's weird, but like LL Cool J is just LL Cool J. I don't get it, but whatever. He developed this with Peter Ramsey, who of course is most known for helping make Into the Spider-Verse, which is an amazing film. And I'd say the style of this reflects or is influenced, or because some of the same people worked on it, is like Into the Spider-Verse. And I think that's one of the things that really works about this film. It is basically, a standard sort of romantic comedy in a lot of ways. Plot and script-wise, it's like, two people have a meet cute. They have sort of aspirational jobs. She's a photographer who's getting shows. He's a graffiti artist who makes comic books, much like, architect and journalist, I guess, in romantic comedy. I'm not the biggest romantic comedy guy, but it is like kind of those jobs that doesn't really happen a lot. I would say the animation makes this a lot more interesting. There's Roger Ebert saying, which is a movie's not what it's about, but how it is about it. And although I think overarching theories on art are obviously flawed, I would use that theory to describe this film, because if it was just a standard romantic comedy without the animation, I probably wouldn't be reviewing it, and I wouldn't find it to be as interesting as this film is, particularly because you see these characters go when Jabari's riding his bike. You'll see him go into these fantastical, spacey, galactic worlds, and they're able to kind of play with the animation and play with those ideas and have cool shading and have beautiful colors and have those mean certain things that you couldn't do as easily and have it mix as well in animation. That's something I really liked about that. I think plot-wise it ends up being sort of standard. I still like it. It just doesn't feel as, I would say, like the animation feels a lot more innovative than the story. The animation is not as good as Into the Spider-Verse. This was actually directed by Fletcher Moles. It is, to be clear and to explain the whole, because there seems to be a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding about what is this, basically, because it was originally announced as a series, and then it sort of became this special, and people are like, but isn't this a movie? And Kid Cudi did on Twitter, or Scott Muscudi, whichever, clarify that each of the chapters, because this film is broken up into chapters, is a different episode, but they put it as a movie so you can watch it all together in a binge way. So if this does well enough, they will make another one. I would be cool with another one. I like the animation style. I like the characters of both Jabari, who's played by Kid Cudi, or Scott Muscudi, and Jessica Williams, who plays Meadow, as well as you have Timothy Chalamet is one of his friends, is in a lot of this. Macaulay Culkin has I would say a glorified cameo. Jaden Smith, who else? Oh, Vanessa Hudgens is in this. Keith David, so of course this is good. Keith David, I think, has as many lines as he had in Nope, so I'm not sure why, I could just see Keith David play all these parts and I'd be happy, but whatever. He plays Mr. Rager for a second, spoiler, I guess. It does have an interesting cast. I think I got everyone who anyone would be interested in. Am I right about that? Macaulay, Luis Guzman also has a cameo. I'm not sure. He should have a bigger one. Luis Guzman is great. I did like the album for the most part. I listened to that separately. But I did really, I quite like this film. I don't think there's a lot of I would say black romances that I've seen like this. It's usually not people doing kind of creative fields and that being as big of a part of the plot as this is. I'm not a romantic comedy expert, and if that is wrong, then please correct me, actually. But I usually, it's like they're an architect, but it doesn't have as much to do with their professional success or what they're developing or how they're coming up with this thing, which I think Jabari did with Mr. Rager, which I think Meadow did with her photography. I do think her photography is sort of an afterthought where you're like, I don't think that would get a show in a gallery, but sure, maybe because she has a picture of the guy who makes Mr. Rager or something. But I think if you like the style of Spider-Verse, this is a great film to check out if you're interested in rom-coms, but maybe those are shot in a very stale way, so this felt like so much more alive in that genre to me than most of them are. It just feels like very quick and like they're just trying to get the charisma and get out. They're not as interested in the other stuff for the most part. I know there's exceptions, but this felt like much more of a great meal visually of a film than I expect from rom-coms, and I quite like that. It's also interesting when I think of a movie that goes along with an album, like I did the Denzel Curry album, that I really love that album, that goes along with music, and as well as Wave Twisters, and I'm expecting more of that where you get a series of music videos, and this is a flat out story. It's definitely a score to the movie. It's not really music videos for the soundtrack. It felt like it was doing more than just promoting Kid Cudi music, which I quite liked about it. I would be interested in more artists would do things like that. This feels more like Pink Floyd's The Wall, the movie, than it does just a series of music videos, which is interesting, and that would be as surreal and weird as it is. There's a lot of weed smoking in it, to the point where they smoke weed while they brush teeth. I've never seen that one before. That's a new one. I liked all the color in it. I liked how alive it felt. It kind of drew me in because of that, but it did feel like the animation was sort of doing all the work to get me into it. And it's a fine romantic comedy, and I like what it was accomplishing with people, especially who are, creative and showing how love affects those things and stuff like that. A great romance can. But I do feel like all these things together make this thing very special. But I think when people talk about the Entergalactic, the album by itself, they don't like it as much. When I talk about just the romance, the script, I don't like it as much. But I think obviously a film is a culmination of all these things, and if you look at it as a culmination of everything, and it seems like that was the intent, I think it absolutely works, and it's probably one of the more interesting animated films of the year. And we don't get animated films that just want to have stakes of hey, what if these two people fall in love and stuff. And if we look at it that way, that this is actually a very interesting film, or a TV special or show or whatever it is. I don't, to me it's a movie, but whatever. I don't know what it is, but I enjoyed it. I think it's good. I think it's probably going to be a hard sell because I feel like the animation people will be oh, this is a little different. The rom-com people will think it's too different. It's almost too different to be sort of defined in a lot of ways, but if you're willing to sort of seek out that definition, I think you will actually quite enjoy this film. I don't know if it'll stay with you or anything like that, and I'm also curious if they do make more of this, which is a plan that they at least want to do. I don't know how far along they are, but where could this go, and where would he go with the character of Mr. Rager, who I think is a song from Kid Cudi or something? Shows how much little I know about this, but I think the The movie itself is just like quite kind of fascinating, and all the things coming together, and actually quite original in, you might say, oh, I've seen this rom-com before, I've seen this style before, but all those things together, I think it reminds me of a different time when we had less, pro animation studio style and less individual style. And this feels, as much as it feels like another film style, it feels kind of like its own unique kind of thing. And I kind of am have a wonderful time going along with that journey, and with Jabari and Meadow, and trying to kind of find themselves through this romance, as I think this film finds itself in a very interesting, unique place. So if you've seen Entergalactic and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.